Good morning, everybody. I'm Guy Kawasaki. I'm in Santa Cruz, California. I am joined by Peg Fitzpatrick and Jeff C. This is the remarkable team, the remarkable axis of power. Jeff is in Texas. Jeff is in Texas. Peggy is in the land of the free, New Hampshire. And I am in
Live free or
California.
die.
The same
Live
thing.
free or die.
Is that really your motto? Live free or die?
Our motto is live free or die.
That's pretty
Yeah.
intense right there.
We
Well,
mean
we're
Yeah.
don't mess with Texas. That's a little because we'll shoot you.
And our state motto is whatever.
it. What
So,
is your state
well,
motto? You know?
should we get some business done before we devolve into our
Okay.
random? So, a few hours ago, we released this week's podcast. It's Erica Dwan, and she is a digital communications expert. I have to say that one of the unintended consequences of me conducting this episode is I'm a little paranoid about all my digital communications because I had no idea that every comma, every colon, every sign off, every salutation, length, subject line, everything impacts people. And it would be easy if it impacted everybody the same way, but you kind of have to tailor your messages for each person. And I don't know how you do that. So it's Erica Dwan. And, here's the icebreaker. So, for you, what is your preferred method of communication? I'll give you my answer. My answer is email. So there you go. So send us your preferred answer. And before we go too far, remember that we are sponsored by Restream. This enables you to have a live feed on up to 30 platforms at once. We're only using 4 or 5 because our heads would explode at 30. And it has a killer new feature where not only can the guests, not only can your followers see you live, but the followers of your guests can see you live. So wrap your head around that for a while. And Jeff, do we have any comments or questions?
We do. First of all, some people are saying text, and we want to make sure that we do not forget that you have a special text even for your group. So
That's true.
explain that for the folks
Yeah.
watching.
So we have a texting system as opposed to simply using email. We have MailChimp for that, and we have subtext for text. And you can join that by texting 831-609-0628, and you'll be signed up. Unfortunately, I have to tell you up front, it's only for Canada and the US. I guess it's so hard to offer text services for a lot of countries because of a lot of the privacy legalities in each country. So there's that. And okay, what else?
So one of the questions from Armand, he goes, why, because you said yours is email, and he goes, why email? Why is that your preferred way of communication?
It's my preferred communication because of the quality of the email clients I can use. So I am not particularly great with a phone keyboard and my thumbs, so I need to type. Now, obviously, I can use iMessages on my computer, so I can type. But then it becomes a whole thing when I want to add attachments, when I want to put in a picture, when I want to do a lot of stuff. Uh, when I want to, you ever try to select text and cut, copy, or paste on an iPhone? I mean, it's just basically random. When does it say copy and when does it say select all? I don't know about you, but I can't figure that out. And how long do you press and how hard do you press and how fast do you press to get that? All that kind of stuff just it hurts my brain. And oftentimes I send several megabyte files that are in Dropbox. So how do I send that with a message, text message? It's all those kinds of things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, a lot of companies are moving away from email though and moving
Yeah.
to Slack. So there's less email and for a lot of people, but I think it depends on what you do and who you are and like definitely your age because I think younger people hate email more than email to them is like voicemail or like they're younger people just have a lot of different ways that they like their communication. They do not want any voicemail at all. They like text messaging the best. And then as we learned, well, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about emojis later when it
Right.
comes up in the questions. But there's a lot to know. And as different generations are working together, this is one of the areas that I think is one of the biggest things is communication. Like, are you reaching your team
Yeah.
the right way? Are you giving people tasks the right way? We use something called Privy for our team, which Guy is on their board, I believe.
Hmm.
But here's the thing with Privy that is not my favorite. I like Slack better because you can find things. The
Search.
problem with Privy is it's like this one big continuous conversation and stuff gets lost in there.
Hmm.
And Slack I actually do like. So does anybody like Slack? Is anybody a Slack user? Let me know
I
what
have
you
it
think about
Well,
for
Slack.
all my clients. Yeah.
Yeah.
but may I point out that with Slack, somebody has to put somebody into your Slack group,
Hmm.
right? So you can't
Yeah.
just start communicating with somebody.
Yeah.
So if you're in a, yeah, so I mean, internally within a company,
Different.
I can see the beauty of Slack, but not as a, you know, a public figure.
Right.
So
So there's different use
Yeah.
cases for email if you're cold emailing someone for sure.
So
Hmm.
that's what I was going to bring up because if you guys are just joining us, the question was, what is your preferred method of communication? And we're getting all sorts of answers like WhatsApp. We've had somebody who said that's their
Yeah.
Mhm.
preferred medium, and Elizabeth says phone call is her. And I think it depends on.
Wow.
So like here's the
Phone
deal.
call.
What is that? Who does no? I think it depends on the relationship, and the podcast talks about this, that it depends
Yes.
on the power structure, where you fall inside the organization, all that stuff. So,
Mhm.
like for Peg and I, we do a lot of stuff with Messenger. Like, hey, I'll say, hey, the new podcast episode is up. Double check it, all this stuff. But then she'll also
You
call
do?
me. Yeah, we do. Oh,
You
all the time.
never, I'm
No,
never
no,
included in
Because you said
those.
you don't care. You said you don't like. You're like you're done.
those are the yeah, those aren't the things that you need to be involved in. And
But
we also
Oh,
have
okay.
we have a group text
yeah,
too.
but we
Our
also
our our team problem is we have too many
we do.
communication things.
But
We
my
have to
point
stick with
was is
one.
that is also we call and talk to each other too, because sometimes it's just easier than like, hey, we're thinking about we got this new opportunity. Should we do this? What's some processes
Mhm.
we need to put to place before we even tell Guy, because we want to get it all worked out before we tell him. So you
But
know,
and Erica says that on the podcast. She
right?
said
Yep.
sometimes a phone call is worth 1,000 emails. So
Hmm.
even
Yeah.
if phone calls aren't your favorite, there are some times when it's just easier to call. And sometimes I call Guy with those too. Like it's sometimes you're just like, I just need to know like right away.
Right.
But
And
you know what's interesting for me is I almost never have a telephonic conference anymore. Every conference is Zoom. And I
Hmm.
right.
just think that you get so much more information with a Zoom than a phone call, i.e., facial expression, all that
Right.
kind of stuff. I
Mhm.
never do a straight phone call, even if, especially if it's multiple people. I can't remember the last time I had a phone business call.
I called
Well,
you yesterday.
a lot.
Well,
A lot of people say he forgot about it already. But a lot of
I'm
people are
so
saying face to face is their favorite method, and what Guy was
Mhm.
saying is that's the true with like Zoom, and that's why we like Restream and being able to do live video is because even if we can't we can bring you up in the chat, which is kind of almost we can see your avatar and what you look like for the most case, so that's really cool as well. So I love live video, and like Guy said, having the live conference things, I still think it's one of the I think we're all trained to do that now after COVID, but
Right.
yeah. So, the thing with live video, and we just discovered something that I don't know why Jeff didn't tell us about earlier, but we found this tool called Plexicam, and Erica is the one who told me about it, and then I told Jeff and Peg, and then Jeff says, "Yeah, I use it all the time." Well, thank you very much. How long have I known you, Jeff? So anyway, so so it is this. It's when I describe it, you're going to think, Guy, what is the big deal? So it is a plexiglass contraption that you hang over the top edge of your computer, and it gives you a little platform for you to put your webcam, or in my case, I put a Sony A6100 on it, and it is a beautiful thing, and
Mhm.
it then you adjust the height so that the camera lens is roughly where the eyes are of your audience, because there's
Mhm.
such a temptation to look into the eyes of the video thinking you're looking into their eyes in virtuality, but in fact you're looking down because the camera is above. So now when I'm looking, in my mind, right into your eyes, because I'm staring at Plexicam's position of the camera lens on top of the window that has our faces in it.
Mhm. It's also important for live streaming if people are on their phone. People miss all the time. They're always looking at themselves. And sometimes I send
Mm-hmm.
people a message and say, you got to look up at your camera because
Yeah.
they're always looking at themselves and then they're looking like in a weird spot when they're going live. So no matter what device you're using, you got to look in the camera. And that's what the Plexicam, which is, by the way, not a sponsor, um,
Yet.
is great
Yeah.
for the iPlexicam. Um, there's for iMacs especially because in iMac the camera is so high,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
you're on your laptop and you're like, we've all put stacks of books underneath when we need to get it at the right level, which then you're typing up here if you need to set it up, and it's just awkward. So yeah, I actually really like this a lot too.
Yeah, so, and yeah, you're talking about like on the phones, like Instagram Live's really hard because you're like at the bottom and the camera's at the top, and it's really
Yeah.
Yeah.
weird. But Rose has this, and she talked about this in the podcast. She says a phone call is too much invasive. Oh, I hit the wrong button. Here, let me put, there it is. Phone call is too much invasive, and
Mhm.
so a lot of like my kids think that way. They're
Mhm.
we think like get on the phone and call the mechanic and find out when your car's going to be ready. They want to text or they want to go to some
Me too.
app where they can find it. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Well,
but they like
when you
to
call
FaceTime.
oh,
Yeah.
when you call Peg, she literally never answers the phone. I think she has do not disturb on permanently. So the only
Well,
reason I call Peg is that so she picks up her phone and says, "Oh, guy called. I'll call him back." You never ever talk to Peg directly. It's always a call back.
that
It's
is
like
not true.
That's
that
If
boundaries.
is
you call me Friday night at 9 o'clock or Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, you might not get
details,
me.
details.
Yeah.
Hey, weekend.
Wait,
Yeah.
wait.
Mental.
How many times have I ever called you and you answered?
Well, I could go back and look.
Okay, we're having a little spat. Let me go to the next question. So
But you
this is
know, actually, speaking of that, though, you called me right before this, and I was doing my hair, and I called you right back,
Yeah,
and
but
I was doing my hair. So
I understand. I'm not saying you don't call me back. I'm saying you never pick up when it's ringing.
I have all my notifications, everything off, so my phone isn't like making a lot of noise because it causes me a lot of anxiety now. Like 10 years into social media, any notification
oh
noises,
yeah.
like even talking about it makes me feel like I missed something or forgot something. So for me, like to stay sane, I have stuff off.
But
Hmm.
have you ever noticed, we're getting really deep in the weeds. Have you ever noticed that when you make someone an emergency contact, even if you have do not disturb, the emergency contact pierces that and your phone will ring?
You can
I
set that. Yeah,
think
there's
I don't
settings in
use
there
that.
too. Like I have it set so if I have it on like right now my phone is on do not disturb so nobody can interrupt.
yeah,
But if my kids
yeah.
call and then hang back and call again, then it will go through. I have that set up on
Are
my
Mhm.
they
iPhone.
emergency contacts?
I don't think they're emergency, but I have it. They're in my like.
Favorite,
There's some level that I put them in, so that if they
favorite.
call and hang up and call
Uh,
back, it'll go through.
Wait,
Mhm.
So
now let me try to repeat this. Do you want me to tell my wife to talk to me? You have to call me twice. That's gonna really go over big, Jeff. Like,
well,
yeah,
I'm
why
like
don't
I'm
you
on
tell
with
her for me?
Guy. You got to understand. She's got she's. You can call back.
Doesn't she just text you and say, "Guy,
I have
get
everything
out of
off.
the motion"?
When I have
The
notifications on, everything's off. When I have silent mode on, it's
yeah,
dead. So
the other day, I was interviewing John M. Chu, the director of Crazy Rich Asians and Into the Heights, and like my wife called and said, "John, I got sorry, I know you're a director, I know you're Crazy Rich Asians, I know you're the hottest director in Hollywood, but I got to take this call." So,
there you go. Points for Guy for
Gotcha.
that.
Yeah. I
So
would
our
if I was talking to John Chu, Rich would get a call back.
or if it's Ryan Reynolds, she would just leave totally.
Yeah,
So
totally.
so our next question is do you answer every email?
That one was for, so that was a conversation that Guy has with Erica on the podcast
Yep.
about email. And I'll say, I used to answer every email, but now I changed a few things on my website, on my contact form, because I get a lot of the same requests. Like they want to have a guest post on my blog, or they want me to edit a blog post to add their tool to it, which I'm not going to do. So I just say nicely, like, I'm sorry, I'm not accepting blog posts, and I do not add links to tools that I haven't used, or I research my articles and try all the tools and include them. So 3 years later, no, I'm not adding your tool. So and then I don't feel bad about not answering those, because I was upfront and I said, I'm not accepting guest posts.
Mm.
So
Those are
so
the
what
two
what
biggest spam emails I get all the time.
wait, do you have an automatic answer that says I'm not accepting guest posts, or you triggered that manually, the first response?
I do have one, but I don't always even send it.
Uh,
Sometimes I just ignore it. If I'm super swamped, like this week I was like, I had so many, we have a lot of extra projects going on.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't feel bad if I don't answer it, because I said right above the contact form that I'm not accepting guest posts. I'm sorry. So
Uh,
I say I'm not going to email back if you
uh.
request that.
Do you
Because
think I'm a bad when I get those kinds of, uh I love your site and I have SEO optimization. Do you accept guest posts? Will you do a guest post? When I see those now, I have like so little patience. I just mark them as spam.
yeah.
Yeah.
I do, because, and they didn't, like, you have to be respectful of people's communication, right? I mean, if you're saying I'm not accepting them, like, why would you edit your article that's obviously doing well in search, which is why they're reaching out to you, to add something that you have no idea who they are? Or
Yeah.
I've been getting some lately that are like, hey, I wrote this great article. I thought you'd like to share it with your audience, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't even know who you are,
Right.
you know?
I don't think anybody answered yes to do the answer every email. We've got tons of no's. Marilyn
But
Yeah.
I
saying no.
try. I
Um,
really do
But
try.
I think sometimes I think you should listen to Erica's advice on that, Guy. I think you answer some that you don't need to. I think you
No
spend
shit.
or text
I'm just
expander. Or,
saying, you
yeah.
should free yourself from that email like it's a monkey on your back, you
What
know?
what gets me is the ones
Not a
because
monkey, it's a freaking gorilla, 900-pound
it's a
gorilla.
huge thing.
I
Right.
wish it
And
was
it's
just a
it's
monkey.
wasting your life.
What's interesting is how many times you get things that, like I get like be on the podcast. Come, we'd love to be a guest on your podcast, and they say that first of all they say they love the podcast, and then you read it and you're like, you've never listened to my podcast, idiot. I mean,
Right.
or like, why would Guy want you on his podcast? Because you're. I don't even know if I don't know. I'm not going to be ugly, but you know what I'm saying. It's like not remarkable. So
The ones that are clearly they're clearly a form email, and they're
hmm
just, and they don't even have like, hi, I love your site, and then it says like in a different font, guykawasaki.com. We would love to, and you're like, no, like
right,
that's an automatic. So those don't even need a response. So
yeah,
those are just like mark it
spam.
as spam, delete it, whatever. But and then
Huh.
the other thing I try to do is remove myself from as many email lists as I can, unless I'm really interested in it. If I love their email, I'm all about it. But just like taking that time to like even read it, sort it, file it, delete it, even that takes time, you know?
hmm
Well, my favorites are the one that say, I loved Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That'll get a response every time.
Do you get a lot of stuff from your forums on your website that's spam that you have to mess with? That's the thing that is your spam
No,
filters pretty good on yours? Because
I,
that's where I get a
I
lot of
don't
stuff.
know. I mean, I got,
If you're not getting them, then yes, they are good.
Right.
yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Need to look into
I
that.
get some. I get some. But how many people have like a slush email that they use? That's what I call mine. Like I have one that's like, and then sometimes people say, "What's your best email to send things to?" But then you have your other one that sometimes stuff goes to,
Yeah,
and
you
Oh,
if you
you
can't
don't,
mean
delete
you're
it.
email
good.
address?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
no,
you have one really good one, and then like we'll say one Outlook and one Gmail,
for example, I
for
have
example.
3 or 4 email addresses, but they all auto forward to Guy Kawasaki at Gmail. I can't
Right.
handle multiple places.
Yeah.
But
It's
see,
hard to
then
say.
I can ignore those other ones, and I know that they're not important.
Well,
They're
here's a
even less.
power tip for everybody. Do you know that anything after a plus sign in a Gmail email address doesn't matter. So, for example, I could put my email address as Guy Kawasaki plus, I don't know, CNET because I signed up for CNET. So I tell CNET my email address is Guy Kawasaki plus CNET at gmail.com. It'll work completely normally, except now I know that if all of a sudden, Clorox is sending me email to Guy Kawasaki plus CNET at gmail.com, I know that CNET sold my email address to Clorox.
Oh, got it.
Mm.
I'll give you another power tip. Did you know that the dot in your Gmail address is not functional? Think of all the people who say, "Oh, my name is John.Smith at Gmail," and everybody's writing down the dot. It doesn't matter. You could take that dot out; it won't change.
Hmm.
Things that make you go, hmm. So, what'll be interesting is like how many email addresses, these slush email addresses you have. So, we've got some people who said, like Melissa goes, she's got 5. She's got like 5 of these extra emails. So, do you have that many?
Wow.
What's the count? Who has the highest? I bet Peg does. I bet Peg does.
No, I really only use those 2. I definitely probably still have a Yahoo email
Oh,
that I never ever check, and if I did, it would have like the maximum amount of. That was like one of my
Do,
first, way back in the.
I had
I don't
AOL.
even. I don't even know what
do,
the email address is, but
do you guys ever check your Mac dot at your Apple, Guy Kawasaki at Mac.com?
no. I
No.
hope
I,
I. I hope I
I
have no email
never
there.
check.
Yeah.
I never check that.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah, but I think going back to the did you learn anything though, Guy? Like, did you change any of your email practices after your conversation with Erica?
He got freaked out a little bit by all the,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
little nervous.
But did you change anything?
Yeah, I mark more people as spam. Like Erica has emancipated me. She's like set me
Good.
free. She says, you don't have to answer everything.
Right. Good. That's good. I actually ordered the book. We have to stop having authors on because I
I
just keep
know.
ordering.
It's
I
just
am like
crazy.
obsessed with books. But I really, her message was great. Like anybody who, if you, this is everybody because everybody digitally communicates. The things that Erica talked about in the podcast are so. Wow, Erica has 8 emails.
Eight.
Right.
Uh,
8 addresses?
Winner
Eric,
so
Oh my
far. Yeah.
yeah, Eric's the winner. You
Jesus.
get the most email because you get them everywhere. Erica's messages about how to digitally communicate are so important for everybody because this is how we do all of our communication now that we're home and then with hybrid and everything else. Even if we weren't, even if you go back to the office, it's like all these things are so important. If you're communicating with your team right, if you're communicating with your spouse right, if you're, I send Rich text, honestly, he does not read a darn thing. I text him nothing. I'm like, why do I? I'm like, did you look at it? No. I'm like, but I never text you anything. You can't even look at what? Nope. I'm like, well, I
Mm.
don't.
I
So that
gave
is his least favorite from me, I guess.
my wife has her own unique text tone. She's the only person who has that text tone. So when that thing goes off and it's very unusual sound, I know it's her.
Yeah.
That's a good
She's
idea.
got the little bell. She's like, "Guy."
So mine we used to play the Emperor's Death March from Star Wars, and she didn't like that much, so I had to change it. So yeah, it was bad. So what's our next question is, do you ever set up autoresponders for like we've been
Mhm.
talking about email, all that kind of thing?
Yeah.
So I know some people. My friend Eric has he's got this whole flow chart of how these autoresponders work. I use
Yeah.
I think Guy uses it too. What is that service that does it for you? Kind of. Oh, I can't think of it anyway.
Service
Smarter,
that
not
does
Smarter
it.
Q. Oh gosh,
Nope.
what is it?
Sane box?
Yes, SaneBox. That's it.
Oh, I saw Sandbox. I was
Because
gonna
it
send
always
it to
tells me
Guy.
that it always says Guy, and I know there gives you your friends and your contacts. Like he saved this many hours this month, and I saw that Guy's on there. So
I did see Sandbox. That actually looked like a cool solution. The thing I want though is there's no service that I checked and I asked on Twitter and I've been looking for it. Like your email box should just be able to set up with like your work hours and then to say like I'll respond after this or after the weekend instead of having to go in and do a vacation
Yeah.
responder for the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even though you might work on the weekends, you should get a break from email
Well,
responding, but none of the
so
services have that built in. And Germany has it like it's like illegal to like it's in their laws that you can't email after work hours and on weekends, and they have very strict laws, and our country's just like pile it on your employees.
That's
But
right.
I feel like that should be something that the tech companies should just bake right in there, like help people with their work life balance, you know?
okay, I have to answer a text message right now because because there's this box spring in my front driveway that I gotta get rid of, and Junk King is asking me for the address, so I gotta take care of this right now. So,
Just talk
It was
amongst
a lot of
yourselves.
information.
So
unless there's someone in Santa Cruz who wants a free box spring, come on down. But right now, I'm gonna get rid
I
of
think
that.
you should
so
answer that.
SaneBox is a lot of, I think it's pretty much like autoresponders that it does kind of
Yeah.
behind the scenes. I really like it. I
Yeah.
heard Michael Hyatt talk about it and I started using it. So I've been using it for a while and it's really helped.
Does it help organize your email? What does it do?
Yeah, so what it does, you can put things like in a black hole. Like if you get stuff, it kind of puts it in this, so you'll never see it again. I get a email that says, your sane box, and it only does it in so many hours. And I go and check it, and I just go down it, and I either put things in the black hole, I put it to my inbox, or I, delete it, and I'll never see it again. And so it's really helpful for seeing what's important. Like I can just go to that box every day, and it's pretty much it's like this, I guess, super inbox that I use. So I like it. It's
So,
pretty cool.
and you've never had anything that you missed because of that? I worry that how does it know? Is it AI that's deciding what's important for you?
Yeah, but I've never missed anything, and you can still go back and search, like if I need like an invoice or something somewhere that somehow didn't see it. But it's never really messed up for me because you're always telling it like everything that I get from this person, I never want to see.
Nigeria.
Yeah, it's gone. So
Because every once in a while, the ones that get lost for me are speaking requests where somebody wants me to come and speak, and it's like a
that
That's a
different,
bummer.
sucks. Yeah.
yeah. And so then I have to, because you want to answer right away.
So we've got a great question because this pertains right to the podcast. So Ali asked this question: what are your thoughts on when somebody CCs more people on an email than is needed? Just in case. And Erica talked about this a lot in the podcast.
Yep,
So
she did.
if you haven't listened to this one, make sure you guys go to remarkablepeople.com and download it, listen to it, review, rate it, share it with all your friends, everything you can think of, do it.
Yeah.
But she talks about it at length about when that's appropriate, when it's not, and it was really eye-opening, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know when I'm on the CC list, I just ignore it.
You don't answer?
It means somebody else is responsible.
Yeah, that's true. I thought her BCC was interesting too. She said companies where people are using the BCC, there's a very low level of trust in the
Well,
employees with like that's an eye opener. But yeah, the CC is weird. Like it's weird. And then sometimes you get the email where a couple people are the top line and then three people are in the CC and then you're like, where is this going?
Mm-hmm.
It's
yeah,
confusing.
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Like, do you answer it, Guy? If there's two people in the top, say somebody emails you and I, and then three people are CC, do you answer that one or not answer that one?
Well, I like to just respond to the twos, not the CCs, so that if the CCs really needed it, the recipient has to go make a manual act and forward my response.
But what about if there's two people that are on the two?
You mean like you and I?
Yep.
Well, you and I, we're of equal importance, so I understand that.
But then do you answer it or do I answer it? Or do we both answer it?
Whoever gets first.
well, I mean, the thing is, this happens for us a lot. Like something, an opportunity to come about the podcast, and Guy will put both of us in the conversation, and I'm like, I see it as way like he's letting us know that this is happening, not so much that he wants, unless he asks because then sometimes he'll go back and say, what do you guys think? Other times it's just like, this is for your information. Like,
Well,
Right.
I must admit,
Yeah,
we're going
go ahead.
deep into the weeds now, but I must
Yeah.
admit, many times I CC and BCC you guys, it's for your amusement. It's like when some dumbass says that I'm Joe Blow of Blow Inc. and I saw Jane Goodall, or I heard Jane Goodall and Margaret Atwood and Wozniak and Angela Duckworth, and I think I'd be a very valuable guest. And when I blow those people off, I just CC and BCC you guys just to bring you a little happiness in your day.
Because that's
So
when
that's a
Peg
why
calls me and goes, "What is he thinking about bringing this guy on?"
I do that. Then we'll call that a FYA
Yeah.
for your amusement.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then there's the other one that you and Erica talked about, which is the no response needed. Is that the one?
That's a good
Yeah.
one.
That's a
Yeah,
tricky one.
that is a tricky one. And I think
Yeah.
that is interesting. Like, are you sending it to someone just so they know? I guess an FYI, even an FYI, I guess the thing is if you respond to someone, you send them something with only an acronym, it could be read so many different ways. Like
Yeah.
FYI, you're in trouble. FYI, take a look at this. FYI, you suck. Like what does that mean?
FYI, I'm buying a new Porsche. It's too late. No
Yeah.
sense getting involved.
I think that
That's what you send to Beth. I don't care if you buy it. I'm like, cool.
so I don't use acronyms, but I think the idea that she was getting onto is letting people off the hook. Like a lot of times, because I have other teammates in Slack that I'll talk to, and I'll be going, like on a Friday, I'll say, "Don't worry about answering this weekend. We can talk about this Monday."
Right.
But I'm putting this here, and I have it shorter than that. But I'm essentially saying I'm putting this here so you guys can see it. Don't freak out about it or worry about it on like 3 on Friday. But I want to drop it here.
That makes me think we should be on Slack instead of texting, Jeff, because I texted you this morning really early, and it was just because you were waiting for something, and I would have slacked that, and then you would see it when you go there. So the benefit of Slack versus texting is then if people don't check it at night or on the weekends, you don't have to worry about bothering them. Where a text message, they get it. Like it would even be nice if there was a text that had a timer where you could send a text later. Like you can with email.
Yeah, sending a text later would be useful. Yes, because
we have two things that people need to invent.
Well, I know because you guys can tell me. I've often thought I should ask you. So sometimes I text you at Pacific time, 10 p.m. and I'm thinking, I wonder if this is going off in Keene, New Hampshire right now, or she just puts "do not disturb" at night. But
I do not disturb after 7 p.m.
Plus, your phone is always perpetual "do not disturb." So
I have mine on a timer that goes on at 9 o'clock. It goes to "do not disturb" every night, 9 o'clock automatically.
Right. But
so I don't need to hesitate then.
Why don't they have that feature though? Isn't that like a common sense? Like send this text at 9 a.m. or something. That would be so good.
It's because Tim Cook has someone who's a personal texter for him. He doesn't have to worry about that.
It's just, I think maybe all these tools weren't necessarily created for work. And now we just have this 24/7 like work communication, which I don't know if Erica got into that in the book, but like that is a problem. You're working at a weird time and then you want to share it with your team, but you're not going to remember to share it in the morning. So you need to share it then.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like there's some things like that make sense. It's like, okay, I'm looking at this thing now.
Because we schedule text for the podcast, so I know it works. I mean, they could have a system that does it. So we have those scheduled to go out at a certain time for letting people know there's a new podcast. So it's not hard. They just need to build it into the app. One of the questions.
I think it's easy. Both of those things would be so easy. There's already vacation responders. So just set a schedule so you can just automatically like accept or, totally easy.
So is the schedule on the recipient side or the sender's side?
The sender's side. So you send one. You set it up for your own email saying, I'm not that like you were you're going to be on vacation. So you're on vacation, that one's set up, but why not just a work one that says you work from 9 to 5 and then other times, they'll get a message.
Yeah. Right. So it should be for text. It should be on the recipient side, right? You should say, I don't want any text messages from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Just hold them all.
You can do that already with "do not disturb."
But do you get it later?
Yeah, when you don't miss your text. When you turn it back on, you get them all.
You have to turn it back on, or it just has to be 7:01.
Well, or you could leave it. You can do it either way. You can either turn it back on and you get them all, or you get 7:01 and you all start. Because with me, all of a sudden I see my stuff start scrolling by after 7. I'm like, oh, Peg's been busy. So one of the couple questions is Carolyn goes, "What was the super inbox called?" It was Sane Box.
Say-
That's what we're talking about.
Sane.
And then another
Say
question. Oh, this is from Tracy. She goes, "I just turn mine off when I sleep or on airplane mode, which is a good idea. If important, texts come in when I turn on my phone. Sleep is queen, king." And
True.
before, I want to make sure we get to
Sometimes
this
you
question.
forget to turn it back on.
I've done
That's
that.
the problem with those things.
But is it really bad? I mean, if I'm just like, a little bit of peace is okay, I guess.
Or what if it's the Texas Hurricane Center saying you got to evacuate, Jeff?
Those
Hurricane's
come
on the
through.
way.
Those come
I
through.
think
I
those
haven't
come
put
through anyway.
Yeah.
Oh.
So this is a question. No, this isn't it. I want to go to this one so we have time, because I think this is the one I want to know more than anything else, and I'm in control. So I'm going to do it. Do you use emojis at work? And this has been going on. I mean, I think, Peg, you were on a show with me a long time ago where we talked about this. But it's still a question. Do you use emojis at work? Is it appropriate? What are your thoughts?
Well, so it used to be that emojis were not appropriate at all in email when they came out. But now there was just an article in the Wall Street Journal, which Erica was quoted in, but I couldn't read it all because I don't have a Wall Street Journal subscription.
It's blocked.
But the article was about exactly this topic, about how people that are 21 use emojis different than people in their 30s, 40s, and beyond. And they mean different things. The Gen Z are adding different things. So even just a smiley face to them means something different. So now, and Erica talked about this, how using the emojis it depends. And they
But-
mean different things.
But I have to confess that I only understand two emojis: smiley face and unhappy face. And all the
I
other
sent you
ones,
the grimace
I don't
face
know what they're
sometimes.
saying. I have no idea what,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I even in social media
Go ahead.
posts, I always struggled with, should I put those in there? I do them more now than I did at first, but it was really hard. And I have to be just like she talked about all through the podcast. It's the levels of relationship you have where you're
Right.
going to put these emojis, or what kind of, signature you're going to put on, all that stuff. I'll only do it with friends or people that I know, I usually don't do that unless we've met before, I guess. But it's still, and there's a lot of people going, yeah, according to me, emojis at work is not professional. So
Right.
a lot of people feel that way.
My wife just sent me a text message and it pierced the do not disturb. So
Oh, so she's
That's because Beth rules.
yeah,
She can get through anything.
that's right.
So I think emojis, I think people do use them a lot at work. I think especially if you're using like Slack, those kind of things
Oh,
are
yeah.
really Slacks and GIFs. Oh, I love GIFs so much.
But how good do you think the assumption is that all recipients of your emoji know what the emoji is? Because I'm telling you, I only know two.
I think sometimes you can't see them when I send them to you too. Like they're too small in email sometimes. Because
It doesn't matter if I can see them. I don't know what it means.
So George says it depends on the type of email. Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
The thing about when we're going back to Slack is that even the companies that I'm part of and work with and communicate with, we use the Gifly, because there's a Gifly, a GIF plugin that you can use inside of Slack. That's almost better than, like you were saying, Peg, emojis, because you can add some humor, or like the eye roll, or all sorts of stuff. I think communicates a lot better inside of there. So
Yeah, they're a little bit more clear than just the little thing.
right, and you got to be careful, because sometimes emojis get appropriated from other things, and you're like, oh, can't use that one again. So
No more eggplant parmesan.
I can't even wear an Aloha shirt anymore.
No?
no.
Can't wear an Aloha shirt anymore.
Are you
Because that
culturally
means you're part of white nationalist QAnon,
Oh
whatever.
yeah,
No, they took Hawaii shirts? That
Yeah.
was
the
wrong.
groups did. Yeah.
Sorry.
And then I used to have Aloha shirts, and I used to wear my, carry my AR-15 with me, and that really just doesn't work anymore.
No, you didn't. That's a joke, everybody.
That's a joke,
He did
guys.
wear- he did
Put
wear
the joke
shirt.
emoji up on screen. Let's. So somebody asked earlier, What makes, I gotta find it, but I'll remember it because it was really good. What makes a good subject line? Yeah, there it is. Jonathan asked that question. What makes a good subject line in an email? What makes you open it? And there's a whole bunch of like copywriting stuff, and even people put emojis in subject lines. So, what makes you open a email? What makes a good subject line?
Well,
Go ahead.
for me,
I know what it is.
it's I love your podcast. That's the one
Then
that gets
everyone's
opened every
sending
time.
that right now.
Then I'll open it.
Right. I think it's interesting. One of the tips that Erica said is if you put people's names in the
Yeah.
subject line, and that is something that I've never done, but it seems like a really great tip because that is one of the things that I learned from Guy in Enchantment when I read Enchantment. Was that the subject line is so important, and then I would spend forever, like making sure it was like clever, smart, not too long. Like there's a lot of pressure you put on yourself. You got to like balance all that with how much time are you going to spend crafting one email
Right.
subject line because you got to get actually into the body, but the subject line, if it sucks, then maybe no one
Well,
looks at it.
and Erica would also point out it depends who the email is going to, right? So if I send an email to you with the subject line, "Hey," that's good enough, but I can't
Right.
send that to Michelle Obama's handler.
Right.
Yeah, the trust factor and how well you know someone matters in every single form of communication, whether it's emojis, gifs, or email and length. I mean, sometimes when you're working with someone for a really long time, you don't even have greetings or closings because, at some
Yeah.
point in the communication, it's just you're like, okay, that they're like, hey, happy Monday. It's just implied at the top.
Right. What's interesting too is about the subject line. I know there's a lot of the email software lets you put an email from your list, their first name in that subject line, but you got to be careful because you don't like it to say, "Hey, first name," where you can tell that they're AI jacked up or something. So you got to be really careful when you use that.
But if you're sending a personal email, if you're
Right.
writing a pitch to someone or you want to like work with someone on a collaboration, putting their name in there seems like it would be really smart. If you're writing a personal email, if you're cutting and pasting, Tracy, if you're cutting and pasting like a form thing,
See,
personalizing the header is not going to help.
I hope everybody noticed that we put Tracy's comment on because she said it's a great podcast.
Yeah, we should
See,
probably just leave that up the entire
there you go.
time.
You
right
see?
there. See, she's a super fan. She's been here quite a bit. So thanks, Tracy, for always coming and supporting our live shows.
And
so,
what are those three graphic things after her text?
Those were
Those
emojis.
are hearts.
That's like I said, it's not a smiley face. I don't know what it is.
It's,
What are those things?
They're hearts. She really loves it. Love, love, love.
Right. So this is interesting. Subject line would be summary of email, clearly setting the context for people you're sending the email to. That's she kind of mentioned that in the podcast. Erica did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
All right. So what was the other question we had? The last one.
Well, I tell you one thing that I think is an instant subject line killer is some kind of subject line that it sounds like direct mail, right? Like offer you can't refuse or save $99 if you act now. That just goes straight to spam.
Do you ever put exclamation points?
One of my companies that I like. Sometimes you want those sale ones.
Yeah.
So she mentioned even exclamation points and punctuation in the podcast as well. So do you think it's okay to put exclamation points in the subject line of an email? Like if you were saying like download my new small business guide now, like kind of thing, Peg, in yours, would you put exclamation points in your subject line?
I wouldn't.
I don't think I use rarely will I do a question, but I think if you have a good question, that can be a really good opener. Like, Jeff, do you need to learn how to use question marks?
I do.
But I mean, I think if you use them wisely, I don't know if I would do exclamation points in a subject line. I always have to be careful because I'm one of the I use too many. I use way too many exclamation points in all my writing, so I am very careful to remove a lot of them.
I do too, but I'm very excited all the time.
I really am. I'm always like, yes, yes. And then I'm like, what? take those out unless it's a.
Yeah.
And sometimes that they're appropriate, but I think exclamation points are used sparingly at the top of the food pyramid to me.
That's a good. That's a good way to put it. So, is this? Are we spending a lot of time looking at screens? So,
That was one of the things that Erica talked about.
right, like in Zoom meetings, and I was worked for a company that he'd make us on meetings when we have to do Zoom meetings is turn on our cameras. And I hated, and it wasn't like you were supposed to talk or anything. He just wanted to make sure that everybody was paying attention. And, I recorded a loop of me just doing this. I just
No.
would put that up.
Seriously?
Oh yeah.
No.
Just because it made me mad. So that's what I did.
You really did that?
Yeah. You never knew.
I think the
Sounds like
thing
a
is-
Mission Impossible movie.
I think it's nice if companies, if you have your camera on at the beginning so everybody can say hi, and then give people the option to turn it off if they want to, maybe.
Yeah, I thought that she mentioned that in the podcast too. That's a good way to do it because there's that time, and then you could do a wrap up at the end. Is everybody turn up your things and we can have a discussion or whatever. But it is just it's distracting when you have people looking at your at least. And Guy talked about this in there too. Is it's kind of distracting when somebody is looking at your phone while you're asking them questions, and that's why you have your remarkable tablet that you use. Yeah, thanks.
But even that, I think if you just look at how many screens we're looking at overall, like yikes,
Yeah.
that blue light. So we all need to wear sunblock for the screen blocking blue light.
That's okay. What? Glaucoma.
So Jonathan says this: when I send Guy emails, I use things like top pics of Guy surfing. Does that trigger it open?
Check out this guy surfing.
I
guys.
guarantee you. I guarantee you.
He would look at that one. Surfing. Let's surf later. He'd open that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Tracy's excitable too. She goes, "I'm excitable, so I use them. I'm certainly not perfect, and I know others may see my exclamations as annoying, but that is me. I speak to those who are at the same level." So we'll
I think the differences between men and women communicating, even in digital stuff, is very interesting too. How women have to tone things differently, and you don't want to be too aggressive. So we would put things like emojis or softer, I'll say,
Soften
like
the tone.
closings and things, so you're not seen as too aggressive.
Yeah, I've seen
I
that.
don't know.
It's like,
I
let's say
saw
like
an email from Peg recently that said, "We don't want their affiliate code." That was it. That was the whole email.
And I meant that.
yeah. But some people would put. So that's a good example.
We're top of the brand. We're top of the brand. We're tofu guy. Just remember that.
But that's a good point
Top of
because
funnel all the time.
because if you could have put that same email and you could have, if you didn't feel like the power structure like she talked about in the interview, you could have put a smiley face emoji after that if you wanted to soften it, which you.
I
But
didn't.
Peg
I know.
knows she has more power than I do.
Right. I know. But I'm just saying that was one of the examples she used, and it's not, and what you were saying, Peg, that some women feel like they have to do that all the time
Right.
because
right.
of where the
I
way
did. I have to say, I did soften it one. It was going to have a WTF at the beginning.
So that's after softening?
Oh yeah.
That was after softening.
That's funny.
I was like, mm-mm.
So this is a great question. Do we recommend any email providers to use and not to use? Yahoo, Gmail, Firefox, Apple, Comcast.
I
What-
would say don't use Yahoo if you want to be taken seriously anymore. Oh, no.
Well, there goes AOL.
Social media scheduling, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. No, I way back when I was with a company that wrote the perfect email client called Claris Emailer. But so I tell you one thing that just is a necessary feature for me that not a lot of email clients have is the ability to send a response and archive the incoming message that it's responding to in one step.
Hmm.
So
That's
if your
nice.
client can't send an archive, don't even show up at the dance.
That is annoying. It's like all these extra steps. It's
Yeah.
so frustrating when you're trying to be efficient with email.
And another thing I don't understand about email clients is that, one of the most common things you do is mark something as spam. So why do they put that in a sub menu? I mean, they got this whole top bar menu empty. Why don't they just put it there, mark as spam? No, I got to go to a I mean, a sub menu to go do that. It's like so stupid. I swear these people don't. The engineers who design email clients should get email. It would be really helpful if they understood what it's like.
Yeah.
So email your engineer friends today, folks, because
Well, I'll
they
give
don't
you my
have any.
biggest peeve of all, and maybe I'm incorrect because I just don't know how to use it. But when you access Gmail with a browser, why can't you change what you're sorting on? Because I have found one of the easiest way to clean up your inbox is to sort by sender. Because
Hmm.
there may be 10 emails in your inbox from the same sender about the same thing, just going back and forth, and you just didn't happen to delete or archive them. So there are lots of times, I can sort by sender and I see, okay, Peg has like 10 in my inbox, but I know 7 of those are resolved. I can just take them all and archive them as
Hmm.
opposed to dealing with them one at a time when I'm looking at my inbox by date. So
Mm.
why Gmail in a browser cannot do that, as far as I know, is just besides me. It's because, you know, I don't know why.
But why do you? I file things versus archive them. Like when we're done, we're in a conversation because I just did this morning, and I was getting rid of ones where like it was
Mm.
like a part of a thread. I file them into your folder versus archive. What's the why? What's the benefit?
Archive
Um,
disappears after a certain amount of time. No,
But then when you need to,
no,
no.
what if you need to search
deletes.
for that email?
Archives, I think, lets you search for it. So do folders. I think it would be the same thing, unless
Is
there's a
it just
time
not
limit on the archive.
Well, my
like?
assumption is that if you're using Gmail from a company called Google, who truly understands search, surely they can find that email. I mean, if anybody can find that email, it's Google, right?
Hmm.
So I just archive one big, folder in the sky.
That's true, but also we know we've been emailing each other for 10, I don't know, 9 years, 8, so a million years for and I think searching in our email is hard, like
Yeah.
because we have so many.
Well,
Yeah.
but the searching in the folder would be hard too, then, no?
Right, that's what I'm saying. Either way you look at it, like, yes,
I
Google's
see.
great with search, but with that many email, it's like they're just
Yeah.
like, "Sorry, we can't help you."
S-
Because a
s-
lot of times it's the same topic, like, "What's the best email client?" or something like that, you know what I mean? Like, we've
s-
had the same conversations about different
Yeah.
tools or
right.
whatever, so
Mandar says the
This is a
best.
good question. How many of you ever recalled a message? I never ever recall a text. I mean,
I have
email.
before.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
but
usually
isn't it
I've
a
like,
pretty short time?
yeah, it's not. It's got you got to jump on it. You can't like go in the house, have a cup of coffee, and go like, oh crap,
Yeah,
I shouldn't have cursed that bag out like that.
I
Dang it, I
shouldn't
gotta.
have
Yeah.
told Guy not to get the affiliate code. Oops, it's too late.
No, I did one the other day. Remember we were texting and I sent the email and you were like, "Wait, add this." And I was like, "Sorry." Because I sent it. I was like, Speedy Gonzalez. It was gone.
So what the thing with that is, I only do it for like misspelling. I'm like,
Yeah.
I accidentally hit enter too fast, or it's for some reason in Gmail there the delete button or one of them is right by. I hit the wrong button. Like instead of
Uh,
delete, I hit the. I'm like crap, and I had to go back and fix it. But anyway, one guy somebody says LinkedIn says don't archive if you have not looked at anything in a year. It's not worth it. It's good as not worth it. Just let it go. So that's an interesting way.
well,
Some
but
stuff
I
goes
mean,
over a year though.
yeah, but I mean, then now you have the pressure of trying to decide if it should be archived. Why not just archive everything and forget about it?
Yeah.
Well, what do I care about the size
Because
of
I
my
think after a
archive?
while it fills up. But I mean, don't you feel it doesn't
Uh,
archive take space in your Gmail account or whatever?
I,
But doesn't the
on the
folder?
other hand, I will tell you that there have been many times where years later, let's say, 10 years ago, I had an interaction with someone at Nike, and I typed Nike into Gmail and it finds that conversation from 10 years ago and I can reconnect with that person.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So that happens many times.
I
So,
think it depends on the level of communication. If it's someone that,
Yeah.
yeah, I have looked up things too, like contacts that we did something with a couple years ago. And
Yeah.
I don't know, does it work the same as folders and archives? That's what I don't know. That's why I put them in folders.
Mm. What?
But
So
you
I
have to
don't.
Is that
manually put
wrong?
them in folders, right? Do you write a filter that automatically puts all of Guy's correspondence in the Guy folder?
No, I read it. I do whatever I need to do with it. That I don't put it in the folder till I'm done with
Uh,
whatever it is.
So do you guys remember
uh,
this feature? I don't remember this in Mac Mail. The bounce back feature to send it back to the sender.
like it never got there correctly.
I guess I don't remember the back
Yeah, I,
bounce.
I I remember that. That was a good feature. I wish. I mean, what as I recall, the way it worked is you had your email address was good. It's just that the asshole that you're trying to blow off gets it back saying, you know,
Don't do this
that
again.
that recipient is no longer found, so that they don't keep bugging you by saying, "Oh, I just want to bring this email back to the top of your
Oh yeah.
inbox that I'm Joe Blow and I should be on your podcast because I'm as important as Jane Goodall."
Right.
So those kind of people, I'd love for them to think, "Oh, Guy Kawasaki at Gmail no longer works."
See, nobody would believe that because you constantly give your email
Yeah.
out.
But you know what? Okay, here's another thing. So I constantly give my email out. I also constantly give my cell phone out. It's
Yep.
not a problem. At least, well, it's not like women are going to stalk a 67-year-old man. Now, if I were a woman, I wouldn't have this policy, but
See that
stalking is not exactly one of my top priority problems.
that's like it makes me nervous though when you say stuff like that because remember like the LifeLock guy who put his social security number all across the
Yeah.
billboard and stuff like hack
Yeah,
me, I don't care.
that's a little much.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but Guy, you get stalked and you get the same requests all the time for, will you look at my pitch deck?
Yeah.
But you know what? I have a text expander response. So tell me if you think this is wrong, but I figure if somebody sends me an email with something like, do you accept blog posts or whatever, something that's just barely above spam, I send them back an email using text expander. So it's typing 3 letters that basically says, no, this is not my focus right now, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I'm sure you'd love my podcast. And then I give them a whole blurb about my podcast. So if you spam me, I'm going to spam you back.
Funny.
That's fine.
And you know what? But I got to tell
Probably
you,
happy with it.
okay, wait, there's more. But the best part of this is many times I send what I consider, a revenge spam response. And the person writes back and says, I looked at your podcast. It's really great. I'm going to start listening to it from now on. So spam works.
Well, they're
Or just
happy to
paying
get
attention,
a response.
to be less of an asshole. Let me put it this way, that I think there is so little response and interactivity that even getting a negative is a positive. Just the fact that you responded at all will make them try the link and look at your podcast. Because, I'm sure if you just sent one of those to Seth Godin and Gary V and iJustine, you probably won't get a response that says, "Oh, go look at my YouTube channel."
Maybe.
That's maybe a good point. Anyway, we have been doing this for an hour. This is probably our longest live stream ever. And we would want to make sure that you guys really go and check out. This was a really good podcast, especially if you're really wanting to up your communication game, things that maybe you hadn't thought about before that you probably need to start thinking about. So make sure you guys go to remarkablepeople.com or to your favorite Apple, Stitcher, all those places where you listen to podcasts. Download it. We would love for you to give us a 5-star rating and review. That helps get it out. And also share it with your friends. If people do not know how to subscribe to a podcast, show them how. Because a lot of people still, it's really amazing. I looked at stats the other week that people still think podcasts cost money with the subscribe thing. It's totally free. Yeah. You can subscribe and listen to some amazing guests over at remarkablepeople.com.
So I have a question for you two experts. So, I love reading reviews of the podcast. And the most recent one on Apple is June. And is there it's like some kind of magic? It cannot be that no one has reviewed our podcast for 3 months.
There's been a bug. There's been bugs on Apple with some of their new updates that I read some in the news that they were having some. You're not the only one. So
what happens? Do people write reviews and they just never appear? I mean, is Tim Cook backlogged? He hasn't had a chance to read all the reviews to approve them?
I don't know, but let's do a test. So if you have not left a rating and review
Good idea.
on Guy's podcast, go to Apple, and if you just go to your Apple Podcast app on your desktop or on your phone, on a Google or an iPhone, and just do a search for Remarkable People. You'll see Guy's face. Click on that, and there's a place where you can subscribe, which we'd love for you to do, but also leave a rating review. And you can, we'd love 5 stars, but we'll take anything. But leave us a rating review. Say that and say, hey, I saw you today on a live stream. We're doing it. So we can do this test. So guys, go check that out.
And then we'll read it next week on the live show.
Yeah, that will be fun.
But I predict there's not one new one. Not because people didn't try.
Tracy, I'm counting on you.
I think that Tim Cook is backlogged and he hasn't had a chance to read all the reviews before he lets them through. I really think that's the problem.
That stresses me out because, you know, they make it so reviews count so much, and then that section is broken. And then
here's the thing from Edison Research did a great study on podcasts, and we'll wrap up with this. But they're saying that Spotify and Apple are neck and neck right now. Apple's not the front runner as the way it was, and so Spotify is becoming more and more important. So we can talk offline, but there's a lot of stuff that is happening in the podcast industry. So,
but wait, I know you want to go, but does our analytics indicate that? Because isn't it usually like 70% is iOS for us?
Right.
Still Apple.
But it's also what counts as a download, and there's a lot of stuff that's happening. People are finding it on YouTube. They're finding it other places. They're watching it, different ways, and people are discovering them in different ways. But Spotify is growing fast. Maybe
it's just Joe Rogan, single-handedly.
It probably is. But James has this great comment I want to end on. He goes, Guy, you are great. Appreciate your insight. You once came in and helped us strategize a bit years back at Virgin America. Appreciate you. James, we appreciate you.
I love Virgin America. Oh, my God. That was such a great airline. Freaking good Wi-Fi, good food, funny flight attendants.
Yeah.
And now it's part of Alaska.
Yeah.
Is it? They bought Virgin?
Yeah, Virgin America, not I don't know about Virgin, but Virgin America is no longer.
Yeah.
They had those cool planes.
Yep.
And do not forget about Guy's Ohana group. It's just family. So text him at 831-609-0628 so that you can get reminded about the new podcast that comes out and also these live streams. So that's 831-609-0628.
And we'll be looking for your reviews.
What'd you say?
I said, I think Jeff wants us to wrap up.
No, we've been going for over an hour. We've never done this before.
Okay, but Guy said, leave us a review and we'll read it next week. That's really important we are testing that.
Yes.
Okay.
And I just am surprised. Is he surfing right now? We just can't tell. I mean, this is amazing.
Are you surfing, Guy?
There's no waves right now. That's why we're going an hour. If it was good waves, I'd be gone. I'd be telling you, I got a virtual keynote to give. I got to go.
Do you have an alert on your watch when the waves are good?
No, I have if you really want to know, 10 of us got together and installed a $5,000 camera to look just where we surf. And only 10 of us can access that camera. So, yeah.
Are you renting it from somebody? Like, is it like on a tower somewhere?
No, it's one guy's house, and we sold lifetime memberships for $500. If you surf at 38th Street in Santa Cruz, California, and in particular if you go right most of the time, and if you have $500 sitting in your pocket that you don't care about, we're selling memberships to that camera.
That's a great idea.
Forget the reviews. Forget the telling your friends about the podcast. Send us $500. Yeah.
No, we want reviews.
Yes. Steve, thank you so much for saying it was very useful. We appreciate a review as well. We're just going to really push that. So,
thank you for the good comments. Take care, everybody. Bye.
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 Oh, I forgot to hit. Boom. Thank you.